Let's go.
Welcome to the Soul Fam podcast, where we expand your personal universe. I'm Diana Marquetta, and in each episode, Soul Fam co-founder, co-creator Lexi Strummer-Solden and I interview the world's most rising and longtime experts in consciousness, spirituality, entertainment, healing, and science. From Earth's dimensions and dimensions way, way beyond. On the Soul Fam podcast, our frequencies are high and your heart chakras will open as these powerful voices of today share cutting-edge research, profound experiences, and valuable knowledge for your world in this out-of-this-world, thought-provoking, envelope-pushing interviews that could only take place right here on the Soul Fam podcast. Welcome to the Soul Fam podcast. On today's episode, Richard Chambers, founder of Starseeds Changing the World, quantum life coach, Crystal Academy, co-founder, Kualama Foundation. Richard is committed to guiding souls, empowering change, and healing the earth. And Richard and I have a history together. I met him way back in 2019, pre-COVID, during a Starseed gathering. And I still have the blueprint that you gave me for my life. We worked together one-on-one later on doing some coaching and some light code work. And I still refer to my blueprint almost daily, or at least once a month. So welcome, Richard. Tell me what you've been up to. And I know there's some really powerful messages that are going to be shared today with our audience about the biodiversity of the earth, the Mamos, the sacred tribe of Colombia, and your own inspirations.
First of all, thank you for having me, Diana. And it was good to have that trip down memory lane just to reflect on our first meeting together. In terms of what we've been up to, most recently, we have just launched a nonprofit organization called the Kualama Foundation. Kualama Foundation. So what does Kualama mean? Kualama means the filter between the spiritual and material world. So the foundation is here to support humanity with reconnecting with their spirit and the spirit of the earth. And our main focus has really been around the area of the Sierra Nevada, 137 mountains in Colombia, a coastal mountain range, where my beautiful sacred indigenous friends and family and tribes that we spend lots of time with lives. Those are 4 tribes, which are the Kogi, the Arawako, the Wiwa, and the Kwankamo tribes. And the spiritual elders of those tribes are called Mamos, right?
Oh,
so they are the community leaders who will make the decisions on agriculture, whatever they need to do to protect the community, education, the spiritual practices, the way they make their own clothes, and just how they organize the mountains as well. So each Mamo will be assigned to a particular region of the mountain to caretake the spirit as a guardian of the earth. So we've been supporting the Mamos and the 4 tribes with different projects in terms of maintaining cultural heritage, building temples on the mountain. We built over 16 temples in the last year. That was actually pre-Kualama Foundation. So that's kind of what sparked us to take the next step and create this foundation. Currently, today, we have a meeting. We have them out in New York and New Jersey right now. A few of the Mamos have flown out there to do some planetary healing and grid work for the area, as well as we have a live event that they'll be speaking about some of the changes with the Earth and what our role with that is. So their role has been in terms of being a guardian of the spirit of Earth. And that area of the Sierra Nevada holds 25% of the world's biodiversity, which is incredible. That's considered the heart of the Americas. They are the guardians of the spirit of the heart of the Americas. And because of that, that's why on this side of the world, we've kind of been through less things than on the other side of the world.
That's true.
Because the guardians of the heart have been able to maintain that. Now, that being said, there's a lot that's happening.
Let's back up just a second and explain to the audience the sacredness of these tribes and that they were not infiltrated by the conquistadors. Therefore, not only are their traditions continuing, I assume in a somewhat pure fashion, but the biodiversity of the areas that they've settled in have also not been disturbed. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. So when the Spanish started, coming into what was Tirana and then changing into Colombia eventually, the four tribes began to just go up the mountains, and they kept going higher and higher up the mountains until they went to a point where they felt the Spanish wouldn't come. So they, for the last, few hundred years, they've been up there and they've been maintaining their original spiritual teachings and practices and just the way they live life. There have been like minor influences, in the way they press their sugar cane. They'll use a press now, but in terms of, colonization and all of that just didn't happen for them. So it's really beautiful because for the most part, they can operate without something like money, right? That all of us need, but because everything is community focused, whatever they do is done always for the community and divided up for the community. So whether it's farming, whether it's clothes, whether it's how they support each other and their families, right? There's a huge community initiative that always happens there. So they say that they are the guardians of the way to live, the sacred memory of life. And they have been holding this sacred memory of how to live and caretaking it and just making sure it's ready for this time that we're in now, because many of us have actually forgotten how to live or forgotten that memory of sacred life.
And being resourceful for ourselves and protecting the biodiversity of the land that's available to us and the water, and our own lives and animals, of course, too.
Absolutely. There's a certain role of guardianship all of us are supposed to have, right? For whatever area it is you live in. I think sometimes we feel for these experiences, we need to go to Colombia or we need to go to Peru or to these other places in the world where it always starts where you live. How are you caretaking the land where you live? Do you know where the sacred areas are, the sacred rocks, the trees? How many times have you gone to make sure the rivers are clean, and just how are we taking care of the area of the land that we're living in? Because we're all supposed to be stewards of that area.
Just to mention to our audience, your wife was on the podcast a few months ago, Jessica Rosalie, and one of the beautiful things she did was talk about talking with the trees, talking with the elementals, and it was really well received by our audience. And how the two of you work together to help steward the earth as well as your own community is just a really lovely thing.
Just so I have a high expectation to live up to now since Rosalie was on here.
Right.
Yeah. So I would think about it like this, right? When you walk outside, are the clouds sharing messages with you? Is the wind? Are you hearing the messages in the wind? Are you seeing the messages in the water? Are you getting the messages from the rocks, right? From the rock spirits and guardians? We have within our DNA and within our cellular structure, like this natural telepathy that is in this interconnectedness with everything. But most of us can't do that, right? This is something that is actually hardwired in our DNA, but we've walked away from the truth of our being, right? So for me, when I go outside, I'm able to connect in a very deep and intimate way and just receive the messages of the earth that are being shared with all of us in every single moment of the day. It's everywhere you go and look, and just by being engaged in the moment. And why has this happened? This has happened because we have lost the sacred connection with ourselves and with our spirit. The world is suffering from disconnection, right? Disconnection of self and disconnection of spirit. And because of that, then we become disconnected from the spirit of the earth and from the spirit of everything and all living things. The most amazing natural Wi-Fi is or God technology of the earth, right? It's coming through the trees, it's coming through the wind, it's coming from the sun. We have this interconnected web or tapestry of life that is, really woven intricately with everything. I think that is what we are wanting to return to preserve and to, awaken within ourselves again.
As you said, we may have the most highly technologically advanced Wi-Fi, but what I feel you're trying to say is that we are already hardwired with that in our DNA, and that it's not necessarily something we need to have outside of ourselves. We already have it within us.
That is absolutely correct.
So that, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll tell you a little story about the mamo. So when a baby mamo is born, they are taken up to the sacred caves in the mountain, and they live their first 11 years of their life in the cave. So they're in darkness. They go outside it. They're allowed to go out and see at nighttime, but they don't see the sun for the first 11 years of their life. And this is because they're being trained to be, a spiritual master. And they're told they need to see the world inside first, to learn the world inside first, to know who they are inside first, to find the sun inside first. And when they've done that, they're ready to go out into the world. Because when they know thyself, right, they can know another. So they come out of these caves fully telepathic by the age of 11. So it's something that's there for all of us, but we kind of do go in an opposite path where we try to figure ourselves through the external world first instead of the internal world.
I mean, for sure. I mean, we're both parents. When our kids were little, it was like, how can I expose you to ABCs and 1, 2, 3s and, throw a ball back and forth. It's all these things and I know how much you love your kids and how much I love my own. So the intention is never to do any harm, but it's just a very reverse way of doing things. It's later on in life now that we're all sort of like, oh, gee, maybe I should have woken up to who I really am.
Yeah, we're not all here to be like mamos either, right? Where we're going to be meditating in caves, for, on 11-year cycles in and out, working on universal altars and just, doing some of those kind of things, right? We're here to make the changes on the planet right now. How do we make the positive changes on the planet when you're disconnected from the planet? Because then we're just creating more disconnection, right?
Right. So that's actually one of the reasons I asked you to come on the podcast, because I felt like in 2025, there's an incredible opportunity for us to reconnect with the earth, and that we as individuals have a responsibility to reconnect with the earth, not only for ourselves as individuals and for the planet, but that there's a universal reason to do it as well. And when I say universal, I mean within the galaxies and the cosmology of the world, of our universe. Excuse me.
Yeah, planetary change has been ordered by the universe, right? The planetary changes have been ordered by the universe. So there's changes that are happening on the planet. These changes are to restore order with humanity. All right? So there is not anything necessarily wrong with the planet. What the issue is with the consciousness of humanity. So it's the human spirit that is creating the need for these changes with the planet. So Mother Earth is now saying, okay, it's time. I'm going to do what I have to do to bring humanity back into a place of order, right? And this is a big message because we all want to help not all, but There's a lot of us here that want to help the planet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Really do want to do what's right. So we got to shift the thinking instead of thinking that something's wrong with the earth, right? Because it's actually something that's wrong with the human spirit.
Is it with our spirit, or is it with our stewardship, or is it both?
Both. So I'll give you an example of fire, right? So fire represents, anger, greed, conflict, hatred, right? And just in California, look at the fires that happen there every year, right? So fire is a divine energy that comes in to regulate,
Mm-hmm.
consciousness. It's a buffer between Mother Earth and between the consciousness of humanity. And because that fire energy of humanity is out of balance, it has to come in and try to regulate that like form of consciousness. So we see it as fires and droughts and war on the planet, right? And that is a reaction to what the human spirit is, right?
So that being said, how do we fix our spirits?
One is really, how do we fix our spirit is we have to start by simplifying our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Not asking for everyone to put your house up for sale. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is we have to look at the way that we live. We all know so much. We actually kind of know nothing in a way, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're becoming more and more advanced, but also knowing less and less and less.
Right. We only know
So,
what we don't know,
yeah.
or we don't know what
So
something like that.
we got to start by simplifying our life and doing our own healing, right? Bringing life back into a way that is manageable for our living. We're also making that time to, whether it's doing our shadow work, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
finding the balance between, our unhealed parts and our healed parts, and how we can love them all and bring it back into the whole, so we can actually start to look at ourselves in an honest, like heartful and truthful way, and start to show up, in our lives that isn't clouded from a place of wounding and from a place of projecting these exterior wants and desires and this insatiable and need for stuff that will just never, or wants that will never be filled. Like in regards to this, I'll tell you a little story, because I receive different messages from the earth through my dreams as well.
Oh.
And after my last trip with some of the elders, from different lineages I was with, I came back to the area I live in, and I was, receiving these dreams from Mother Earth about the collective consciousness in the area. And it was about these desires, like this hunger that could never be filled, no matter how much it eats, right? No matter how much you give it, it just wants more and it wants more. And it was sharing with me that this is actually the collective consciousness of the human spirit in the area that I live in. So I and Rosalie, we went and we made spiritual payments to Mother Earth to restore balance to the collective consciousness and make payments for that imbalance, right? So there's lots of ways we can start to restore order to this, but it starts with restoring order to ourselves. Because if we are really living in a way that's harmful to ourselves, how are we going to treat the planet? We're going to create harm for the planet as well. If we're living in a way where we can honor ourselves and nurture ourselves and take care of ourselves and understand how sacred we are as a being, and how we can see that sacredness within ourselves, we can see that sacredness in another person. We also see that same energy and experience within the earth, right? So it really like does come down to ourselves in the way that we have to restore that sacred relationship and sacred connection. So with ourselves, with the planet, and with each other. But it starts with ourselves, right?
So when you went to make offerings, and this sounds similar to what Native Americans do as well sometimes, or Indian or Hindu cultures or Buddhist cultures, and I want to mention, do you live in Ottawa? I forget, actually.
No, I'm in Canada.
In Canada.
Between Niagara Falls and Toronto, and just about 15 minutes outside of the Six Nations Reserve here.
Oh, interesting. And so you're not far from New York either. So that sense of this endless hunger, this endless desire within the community consciousness or the collective consciousness in that area. And I live in LA, for heaven's sakes, I'm sure we have exactly the same kind of thing going on, probably far worse. But so what did you two do to sort of specifically, I understand that, but were there gifts that you did? Were there prayer? Was there ceremony that the two of you did?
Yeah, we would hold a ceremony.
Mm.
I would get that direct messaging from Mother telling me what it is she needs, right? In terms of balance. What we're talking about is reciprocity and energy exchange.
Okay.
So the reciprocity, reciprocity is when there's an exchange of energy. If that exchange is equal, it creates a lighter energy. If that exchange is not equal, it creates a denser energy, right? And we kind of call that hucha, right? It creates this denser energy. So when we have an exchange, whether it's with two individuals or whether it's in the planet, if that energy exchange is clean, it's, both sides understand what the equal value is, then we're creating a lighter energy. What happens, what is the relationship with the earth, right? If we're just taking, we actually don't even, we put ourselves in a level of superiority to the earth. What's the relationship in the energy exchange with the earth? Well, it's going to create a denser energy, right? It's going to create something that doesn't feel as good. It's not going to feel as good for the earth either. And then it's the same thing within the human spirit, right? We start to create this density. So we have to balance that density. The way we do that is by restoring that balance and order with ourselves and with the earth. So in terms of payment, we would hold a very sacred ceremony that's kind of actually guided by the earth. Would involve singing, drumming, lots of bringing in, the positivity as well as making payments for that imbalanced energy, so acknowledging the earth for what it is and what she does, and how she's also a master teacher that's here for all of us, right? So restoring that sacred connection. It's kind of a hard thing to break down right here for everyone.
Uh-huh.
I've had many awakening walks in the jungle with the Kogi elders who have shown me how to make spiritual payments to the earth. And there's not two that are ever the same, really, right? Because the communication comes directly from the planet. And the main part about making the payment, the first step is you can't be in a position where you think you are superior to the earth or coming from an unhealed place. Right? For everybody listening to this, the easiest way for you to make payments is to know where the sacred areas are where you live, if you can make a payment with your hair, with your fingernails, because it's something you grow, right? So anything you grow, it's not about money, right? It's not about buying shiny things for the earth. It's about something that's from you. It's about really connecting with the earth and also singing to her, and because that helps to get rid of the ego as well, and then sharing your actual love and working on your relationship, right? It's kind of like, if you think, how does a child do when they don't think they need a mother, right? Probably not so good. They probably develop some bad habits.
Right.
They probably get into all kinds of trouble, and the mother's sitting there watching them going, what are these children doing, right? So how do we heal that relationship with mother? Because we're all brothers and sisters of the same earth, all of us.
Right.
Interesting.
So, for instance, I live outside of Los Angeles. I've lived on a couple of different properties where there were Native American tribes initially, and that was very apparent. And maybe not, it wasn't on the real estate listing, but when I checked into the history of the location, I'm like, oh, that's why they're here. And they're passing through or whatever's happening. Just an interesting experience to understand how important it is to honor the trees that are still on the property from when that tribe had been there as well. And I don't know that we always believe that we as humans can really make a difference in helping our relationship with Mother Earth?
Yeah. So it starts with, just really being mindfully aware and present. I was walking around my house one day and one of my plants said to me, "How come you don't talk to me?" Like, okay. I turned and I looked and I was like, oh no, how many times have I walked by this plant without saying hello?
Right.
Like, how many times have I, just kind of just looked at it like a wall of my house, right? Instead of an actual, like, conscious, sentient, like, being in my home. So now I have a practice where I make sure I, like, greet, all of my plants, and, I spend a little time with them each day. And it sounds like something very simple, but first take care of your home, right?
Yeah.
Take care of the trees on your property. Go and connect with them. Ask them what they need. How are they doing? Is there anything that 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 can support them? If you have a tree and a rock that are together, this is like a masculine feminine portal on your property. If it's on your property, that means you need to be the guardian and the steward of that and protect it, because those are sacred areas. So, and that's a good place to make offerings and put blessings and to have your prayers as well. But if it's on your property, you're meant to caretake this area. So the question, instead of just looking at everything and wanting to chop it all down, it's actually, how are we being, the guardian of the land that you have, the
Right.
steward of it? And that starts again with relationship. So that's what I mean. Humanity's become so busy. We don't think about these things, right? We just walk by everything. We don't even notice what's around us.
Right. What's feminine and what's masculine?
It depends.
If it's the rock and the tree, is the rock masculine and the tree feminine? Or will it tell me?
I'll tell you, but it can depend on the rock spirit and on the tree spirit, right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I have 3 trees right at the end of my porch. And since your wife was on the show, I go and talk to the trees now. And I notice a big difference. They're sort of my guardians. They keep the little place I live in safe. And it's just interesting. It's interesting to see how they're kind of coming to life in a different way for me.
Absolutely. They want that interconnectedness. And think how much they've seen too. They were there before you, right?
Right.
They were there before the people who were there before, right?
Right.
Like they've been most likely there quite a while. So
Yeah.
to sit with to shamanically journey with that tree or the spirit of that tree, right? If they're open to it, always has to ask permission first, what they can share with you, what they could show you, what they could teach you, right? I have a certain tree that I go to do ancestral healing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and if there's certain things in my lineage that I need to do healing work for, I will always journey with a particular tree. And that tree helps me move through my own family tree, right? To do healing work.
That's super cool. I'd never thought of something like that. And we talk a lot about ancestral trauma and clearing that on this show. So that's beautiful. I don't want to get too far away from, you've got so much information, Richard. I've got to say, I mean, I've known you a long time, and so I know how much you've grown in your practice and in your understanding. And, you've shifted your whole life. I mean, when I met you, you were shifting your whole life. Now it's shifted even more in such beautiful, positive, magical sort of ways. That's the only word I can really put to it, because you've really expanded your consciousness as well as your reach into different communities. And it's really interesting to see you bring something which seems a little far out, to go up in the mountains of Colombia and work with the Mamos and these different tribes to connect it back into your very local community.
Yeah, I think like when you first met me, I was going through such a just galactivation. Like I was in such a powerful galactic like stage and just going through all of that parts of my DNA activation. And I understand why I needed to also go through that, because to be in a situation where I am communicating with these particular indigenous tribes from the Sierra Nevada also requires a level of celestial stewardship, and guardianship as well as earth guardianship, right? So it's interesting, like when I first met the mamos, or how it all like kind of came to be, was I was meditating and I was sitting there asking my body, like, when was the last lifetime you were happy or you just thrived, where my body felt like it had everything it needed? And I received it was back in my tribal like roots in a tribal lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, okay, well, I've been working on restoring my own tribal blueprints for a while, because we've all moved away from our original like lands of our lineage, and that for the most part, it's happened all over the earth, every country, every civilization. So is this something I could heal? I always thought I could. And then I received, there's someone on the planet that holds these. And if you can connect with them, right, they're going to it's going to be a healing experience for you, because we shared a common affinity in other lifetimes too.
Huh.
So I thought, all right, well, universe, if I'm meant to meet whoever this is on the planet, I'm open to that. And the next day I received the email to sit in with Kogi elders. And I thought to myself, I was like, all right, well, that's weird. I was just meditating on this yesterday, and I'm like, are these the ones? And they are. Like, the Kogi are the ones they're in the jungle. They live outside of society, right? They do their own things. They're in the spirit world mostly.
Right.
So they're incredible mystical beings. Like, when you're following them in the jungle, if you look away, they're gone, and they're on top of a 40-foot rock looking down at you all of a sudden, and you're just like, did they teleport? Like, how did they even do that, right? So after this meeting I sat in, then I was reached out to, just saying that they wanted to talk to me because my spirit's been walking around the mountain for the last 3 years.
Right.
So they said they know me. I've been with them in the caves, like my spirit's in the caves with them. I'm walking around the mountain, and they've been waiting for 3 years for me to like receive the message. So that's kind of how I connected with them. And then after that, they had mentioned I would be going to Colombia and very soon, which I told them, no, I wasn't. I wouldn't be able to do that for a couple of years, I actually said. Because you go into your mind like, I got to do this, I got to raise this amount of money, I got to take time off, my schedule. And I was like, there's no way this will happen this year or next year. And then they just kept reaching out to me and saying, hey, you're going to be here soon, and with a group of 15 people. And I thought, why would I go into the jungle where I've never been before for the first time with a group of 15 people, And then people just started messaging me, hey, do you know how I can get a hold of the Kogi elders? I've had these Kogi elders in my dreams since I was a child. And I had 15 people all reach out to me in a very short span. And then that's it. We went. I was there about 3 months later, going to awakening walks and just spending time with the elders and starting to, really cultivate and build this relationship, because for them, one, their wisdom is just the forgotten wisdom. Like I said, they hold the sacred memory of life and how to live, and most of us have forgotten that. Two, they have been in a level of stewardship for the earth. They call themselves elder brother, right? Because they remember what their roles here on the planet. Their story is that their creational story or origin story is that they were left here by the creators of the planet to be the guardians of the planet. They say the 4 tribes are the 4 table legs that hold up the universe. And then the 5th tribe is all of us, right? And it's time for the 5 tribes to come back together. So those 4 table legs have been doing, this work and protecting the planet, the grids, and all of that kind of stuff. And Mother Earth and the universe had said, now it's time for everybody else to do it. It's not up to them in that way.
So wait, their message is that, 5th tribe, pick up the pace here. Yeah.
It's time now. Yeah. It's time for us to start to take responsibility and balance the reciprocity, like the reconciliation of the human spirit and the connection with the earth. Yeah.
And then also, is it to establish some equanimity between ourselves and the earth? I mean, the earth has given us a lot, whether we want to admit that or not. Is it that? I mean, I understand what balance is, but is it to make our relationship more equitable, so to speak?
100%, right?
Okay.
We keep taking and taking and taking from the earth. One of the Kogi elders said, I don't know if it was an elder, I remember listening to one of the Kogi women speak, and she said that we have all these great scientists and all these super intelligent people on the planet. How come we haven't been able to figure out how to not use all of the resources from the planet, right? Everything
Good
we
point.
do, we use such amount of large resources, right, in terms of energy and that. But the next phase we need to go into is in a way to do things that doesn't create harm to the planet.
I think that's underway in some ways, but perhaps it's that we need to really focus on it. Go ahead.
I'll give you one more example. When all of the gold is taken out of the earth, there'll be no more snow.
Excuse me?
That's another, the elders say when the gold is removed from the planet, eventually there'll be no more snow on the planet.
Now, why is that?
Because it spiritually has a direct connection with the snow on the top of the mountains. So each thing in the earth is actually there for a reason. It does something, whether it's crystals, whether it's gold, whether it's platinum, whether it's whatever they're using to make cell phones, like these compounds that are in the earth support the planetary body, right?
So we're shifting things in a way that will harm us.
Yes, because we don't ask if we have permission to take it.
Oh, that's funny.
Right? It's the same thing with when you're in the Sierra walking around in the jungle. There's lots of fruit, but you have to ask the tree permission to have a fruit. You don't just take a fruit. When they pick their food for the day from the farm or, from wherever we are, they ask, what is it that we can have today? And they'll pick until they're told they can't pick anymore. And when we go to make meals, they'll say, well, today this is what we can eat. Maybe tomorrow there's a little bit more. Maybe the next day there's a little bit less, because they only pick what they're allowed to actually have, right? Instead of just picking what they want.
Right. It's really interesting. I haven't thought about it this specifically. So
that's yeah, sorry.
So are we at this crucial point? And since the fifth tribe has to wake up and go to work, is that because we're at a point of no return?
I don't think we're at a point of no return.
Okay.
I think the planetary changes will continue until we come into a place of balance and order on the planet. Okay. So we're seeing floods, we're seeing hurricanes, earthquakes, fires, natural disasters happening more and more and more. I have dreams about places being flooded every night. So there are things that need to come in balance, and there's a bit of disconnect from our understanding of this. So if you're in alignment with the earth, you're going to be exactly wherever it is you need to be, right? And experiencing what it is you're meant to be experiencing. If you're not in alignment with Mother Earth, you're more likely to be experiencing some of these things.
Interesting. I mean, there's been so much disaster and trauma, and I've certainly, I've interviewed quite a few people that have been involved in disasters. I mean, I live in California. As I always say, we're just one disaster waiting to happen. So it's just interesting. I appreciate that you're not saying that we're at the tipping point or that we're beyond repair.
I mean, so with that, I would say we're not beyond repair, but it's time to take action 100%.
Right. So is one of the areas that they are particularly, a lot of this comes from spirit overall. And then, of course, as humans, we're trying to break it all down and put it in categories. And as I'm talking with you, I'm like, well, what do they say about the mammals? And what do they say about marine life? And, all those sorts of things. But I'm assuming now, if I back up a little bit, that the message is the same.
So are you asking about the oceans?
Yes.
So water represents women, right? Represents the divine feminine. So the way you can't hurt water without hurting a woman as well, and you can't hurt a woman without hurting the water. So it's a direct correlation between the oceans and the way we treat the oceans and the way we treat women as well. And that form of like creational energy, because women are weavers of thought and order, right? So that's why they say happy wife, happy life, right? Because they weave in the creational energy for that space, right? They weave things into thought and order. So women have a very important role on the planet, and so does the ocean, right? So I think it's a very like, back to what is the right relationship to have with water? What's the relationship you have with it? What's the relationship you have with water in your home? Whether it's with women or whether it's with, the water in your glass or the rain outside. We're talking about foundational relationships, right? What's our relationship with fire? This is another good one because we all used to have a fire in our home, like real fire with logs. We all used to have community fires that we would come together around.
That's
When
true.
you come together around the fire, it brings illumination and togetherness, right? And since we've removed the fire out of our homes and the fires from our communities, we've now lost our relationship with fire. And because of that, we're seeing these imbalances in the human ego, right? And in the human spirit. So we've lost this like sacred connection, whether it's with the earth, whether it's with water, whether it's with fire, right?
Interesting. In my own community, they're just interesting. I live in a community that's very highly aware of where the fires are. So, and it's ironically the thing that brings community together. Not in a positive way necessarily, since you're running from the fire or you're, seeking to evacuate animals from the fire, but it does bring the community together, whether they like it or not. So if we balance things, it would be the opposite. We wouldn't have to fear so much.
Yeah. Yeah. But these things are happening because this may sound like very basic to people, but we've basically lost kind of the natural way we used to like live, and we've taken many of these like sacred relationships with the elements out of our life. So when we lose that connection to the sacred elements, we start to see that impact within the world.
Right. It's fascinating. So I know you have a live event coming up really soon here, and there's so much to cover. I want to be sure we talk about your work in Colombia and sort of the sacredness of the work. There's a lot of us who are like, oh, I'm going to trip on down to Peru, or I'm going to hang out in, I don't know, Costa Rica and do an ayahuasca trip or whatever it might be and reconnect or get rid of all my stuff. But let's talk a little bit about really what you have to be in order to be prepared for a trip like this or an experience like this.
Yeah, so we we usually go down a couple times a year to the Sierra Nevada and take small groups into the jungle who are community leaders who resonate with the message that's been shared today and really want to heal that relationship and connection with the earth. So we'll take them through a process of balancing the seven senses with the planet, like the two eyes, the two nostrils, the mouth, and the two ears, so we can come into harmony and alignment with the earth. And then to also be a steward of this, right? Like be a steward of the messages of the planet to, bring that back into the areas where you live. So we can start to see, a bigger global impact and change in this message being shared throughout the world. Now, it's a very interesting conversation. Eventually, I feel we're going to build another place where we bring people to, because I also have to be really mindful as the co-founder of the Kolama Foundation to be careful of the footprint within the mountains as well. And it's not about bringing lots of people down there for the awakening walks in the jungle that we go through, and we go into, different areas that we may have never been in before. Like I'm going into the Kogi area in March, which is going to be a new area for me to go into. And when we go into these new areas, there's a level of responsibility for going into these spaces as well. So it requires a level of spiritual maturity as well. For that. So that being said, we are welcomed with open arms and invited in as family, as brothers and sisters. And it is one of the most sacred experiences that I have ever had the blessing and privilege to, take part in. Just to be warmly welcomed into these places with such beautiful people. Like the hearts on these individuals and their communities are just beyond what you can imagine. How they live, and just seeing how they live in the jungle and in their communities, and how they still hold that community blueprint where they take care of each other, and the family blueprint, how they take care of each other, and how they're really deeply connected with spirit. And when you're there, I make the joke, it's kind of like being in a Disney cartoon, because everything's talking to you. The trees are talking to you, the birds are talking to you, the animals are talking to you, everything's talking to you, and is so alive when you're there, right? So you get to bring that back with you too. And that's not something everybody is ready for, right? Yeah.
And mindfully speaking, it almost defeats the purpose if the footprint is not mindful and considerate of not only the Kogis themselves or the community itself, but of the biodiversity in the land.
Absolutely. And we also want people who are interested in supporting the Kulama Foundation, that want to help get this message out and help with some of the bigger projects. There's many different things we're working on. Right now, we have the elders are in New Jersey making payments there. The reason why they're there is because there's certain things in the grids there they're working on. We just had them out in Mount Shasta. Right, we have a small group that the elders had voted on, able to travel, right, for these projects. So we were out in Mount Shasta not too long ago with a meeting of different indigenous lineages, like the Kero from Peru, the Queen of the Haida from BC, the Hopi were also there, Corn Maiden from the Hopi. It was a very sacred meeting for that area as well in California. And then after that, we went and made payments to Mount Shasta. We went down to the San Andreas Fault in San Francisco to make payments there as well. So that costs money, right?
Right.
They have the wisdom and the knowledge and how to do this. Just that one trip alone, is, I won't get into the expenses without it does require, support.
It's interesting that they're in New Jersey, by the way, with all of the interplanetary drones or UAPs that have been showing up in this last week.
Yeah. And I won't get into that part, but
right. Just coincidence.
They're known everywhere. So there's a lot of attention always.
It's interesting. You were just mentioning that you want to be mindful of the locations. Are you establishing another location? I mean, the truth is you can do this. I mean, the locations that you're choosing to do the payments, you can't necessarily, those are very specific, but is it possible to create someplace or a vortex that sort of does everything in the same place? Am I making sense?
So we will be looking at some point getting a piece of land and building the appropriate temples on that land for this, and bringing people there where we can do it a little more often. The trips down to the Sierra Nevada are really important for, select groups that kind of share that same vision, right? The entire Sierra Nevada is like the heart of the Americas, right? So in terms of being able to program, certain program balance, heal, and bringing connections for the planet, it's a very important area.
And it should remain sacred.
Each mountain represents like a different place on the planet, right? So when you work within different mountains, there's the mountains that are on the earth are very important. So anywhere where there's mountains are usually, a pretty significant place that hold the level of planetary, I guess, grid working
Right. It has a
capabilities.
specific role.
Yeah.
Interesting.
They channel the solar consciousness into the planet, basically.
So, how are you trying to bring this, or you are bringing this, I should say, back into your own community? And I bring this up because it feels like we all can do this on our own. I don't need to necessarily go to Colombia, perhaps, but I can bring this back to my own community. And is that a focus that you feel like is part of your mission as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think generally what my mission is to support people in terms of healing their relationship with their own spirit and the spirit of the earth and the spirit of all, right? So wherever I am, that's what my focus is. Where our community, where we live, we are going around to all of the sacred areas here and just identifying them the best that we can as well. And then it's about what my relationship is with Mother Earth and what, just listening, asking her, like letting her know we're here, we're listening, what is it that's needed, and then doing that work, right? So in terms of teaching that, it's definitely takes some time for others to come into that like awareness, but you want to know where you live, like all the sacred places are, because it's supposed to be our responsibility. That's why we're living there. Whether it's in your backyard, whether it's, the trail you walk down every day, like, do you know where the sacred spots are on that trail? Have you identified certain rocks? Have you identified certain trees? Do you know where the waters are? Like waters are always a sacred portal as well, right?
Interesting. I live next to a national sort of preserve, and I was just thinking how there's so many mountain bikers, and I hike there a lot and horseback ride there, all that sort of thing. But I don't know that we're aware of the sacred areas there. And I was also thinking of my family's farm. There's so much, I think I'm trying to say that there's so much sacredness everywhere we are, whether you're in New York City or downtown LA or in Toronto, there's still sacred spots everywhere.
100%. And, it's interesting, like by going in this year in Nevada and just spending so much time with the elders as we walk through the jungle, they'll point out, like, see this rock, this is a map for the entire mountain. And you can see, we know where to go by looking at this rock.
Wow.
And when I go out and walking here with Rosalie, just, doing our thing, I'll stop and I'm like, see that? We just found a map. Looks identical to the one that was in the Sierra Nevada. This is a map of the area. So we're going to start taking like groups here locally probably in the summertime or spring, through certain walks just to help them like identify, these places. And when you come across one of these, you make a blessing and make an offering, share your love, right? You can make a payment if you want, as long as you ask if it's something that's actually needed, right?
Right.
A lot of times we want to offer things that aren't even needed. We take it from somewhere else and we want to put it there. And that's not necessarily the best thing, right?
It's so interesting. One of the traditions in Native American tribes is to bring tobacco as an offering, as a thanks. And it's, I'm
I put my prayers in my tobacco pipe as well. And
you do?
Yeah. I'll say, I do my prayer. I'll play my drum and I'll sing to it. And then, I work a lot with like cotton, like pure cotton in terms of offerings.
So have you noticed a shift, by the way, when you're on these walks and you do some sacred work?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Do you notice it in yourself or do you notice it in the energy around you?
Well, the first thing that will start to happen is everything starts to communicate with you more, right? Because it's like like I said, it's all sacred connection, sacred relationship, and right relationship. So when you start to come into right relationship with something, it starts to come like into right relationship with you. So when we go into the areas, now you're going to see the messages from the earth. You're going to see the animal totems. You're going to see start to receive more about what it is that actually needs to be done now, because you are healing that reciprocity. We coordinate with like the mamos as well when we're doing like really huge payments for the collective consciousness here, like especially at certain areas where we go that we know there's something really special there. So those areas we've seen a big shift, 100%. Yeah.
Is there anything we can do, Richard, in our own homes or in our own sort of personal space to honor ourselves and to honor the space that we're in, whether we're aware of if it's sacred or not? Make it sacred? I don't know.
So I'll teach you something that this is just something that I started doing, and I learned this from my plants actually. But I built myself like a communication um, a communication station to connect with Mother Earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have like a small indoor tree
Mm-hmm.
and you want to set up a couple decent size like rocks or crystals beside it, and you ask the tree which crystal or rock is supposed to go there for communication, then that when you can't always get outside and stuff, you can have, you start to have that earth energy calibrate to your home by connecting with this. So I have a spot in my house as an example, which is like for a blessing, an altar, or also for communication, whether I want to communicate with Mother Earth or in the mountains in the Sierra Nevada and some of the alders, right? So that's something I've done, and I found it really powerful because it helps to mitigate a lot of like the EMF energies within the
Mm-hmm.
home when you
Mm-hmm.
start to really bring this like natural, organic energy into the house, right? And I think that's one of the things all of us kind of suffer from, whether we're, doing a podcast like this on technology or,
Mm-hmm.
we're on Zoom all day or whatever it may
Mm-hmm.
be. You need to have like life in your home. So how do you bring that life in your home as well? And that sacred connection. So I build like a sacred kind of like portal for connecting with Mother Earth, which is trees and rocks. And then I usually work on establishing that relationship, by spending some time with it each day, meditating.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing like when I'm walking around in the jungle on the Sierra Nevada. One of the elders showed me this one rock and he was like, "Do you see this rock?" And I was like, "Yeah, I see the rock." And he's like, "This is how I call you. This is what every time we want to talk to you, this is what we call you on." So they communicate with me through this one rock on the mountain. And they're like,
Huh.
"We're preparing in case the phones go down. You need to be
Mm-hmm.
prepared. If the phones go down, if the power goes out, how are we still going to communicate with you, Richard?" And when I got back, I started to build this, communication kind of natural station in my home so I can also communicate with them.
Because telepathically, you can communicate with them. And
Yeah.
I think what I was also trying to get at, that's really interesting. I'm going to get a treat today. Also felt like if you're honoring the tree, the crystal, the rocks that you have in this sort of sacred spot in your home, that's also honoring the earth. Is that right?
Yeah. 100%. It's all the same thing. And then when you go outside, it's just honoring the trees on your property, right?
Mm-hmm.
Making payments at the trees, making an offering and a blessing, right? For all they're providing, just restoring that right relationship. But in terms, if you look at like, I call it like cellular telepathy too, right? You start to activate this like cellular telepathy between your body and between, the plants, right? So you want to understand nature, you got to understand yourself too, because we're made of nature. Our bodies are made of all the elements, right? So if we understand our bodies are naturally interfaced and can communicate with plants. So you have that relationship with your body, you should be able to communicate with them. It's always really powerful to have certain plant teachers that are supporting you on this journey as well.
And you mean to connect with those plants that they can help guide us?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If we're listening. That's beautiful. I know you have to go to a live event here shortly, and I feel like we're just getting into the good part of this interview. But share with us what our mission is.
What our mission is?
Yeah. If there's a message for us as the fifth tribe. What is our mission?
Our mission is to organize our consciousness and to restore order with it. The second part is to really understand what reciprocity is and energy exchange and how to balance that and create, one that isn't, bringing harm into the world or harm to each other or to ourselves, simplifying our lives. Everyone's lives are way too complicated. We have way too much stuff going on that we can't be fully present, in our lives. And if we honestly just do that, we're going to start to really see what's happening on the planet. So I think as humanity now, our mission is to really hear. Because she's talking to us, and she's been talking to us every day, all day long, and most people can't even hear her. If we did, we wouldn't be doing a lot of the things that we have been doing. So I think that's what our mission is to really heal ourselves so we can come into a place of sacred relationship with the earth and each other again. We all have such beautiful hearts, for the most part. There's so much love on the planet. We've just kind of walked away from what actually like really feels like good for ourselves and a way of living. So it's about, just starting to make those small changes in our life and how we can let go of the things that really aren't serving us. If your life is chaotic, you got to let some things go. That was what I've done over the last few years. I call it's like being in the cave, right? I was like, what am I attached to? All right, I'm going to let that go. How does that feel? That feels uncomfortable. Well, if it feels uncomfortable, good, let it go. What's the worst that happen is you can pick it up again. But if you don't try letting it go, then it can consume you or it can cloud your vision, right? It can cloud your awareness. So start letting things go. Start creating more space in your life. When you create more space, guess what? You're making more room for now, more of the things that are in balance and in alignment and harmony and actually what's truthful to you, So we've kind of walked away a little bit from our truth. Most people are living somebody else's truth because that's what they think they're supposed to be doing. And are they happy? Right? I think that's the number one cause of suffering, is not living our own truth.
Right. I would agree with that. Living a lie of any sort turns out to be pretty uncomfortable.
Because we have to, or because someone told us that's what we need to, or to be, this thing. Well, it's time to reset that. And it's time for us to, evolve spiritually on the planet and to, really return to our origins.
And be in our true truth.
Make that journey down from the mind and into the heart.
Yes, this is something we are talking about a lot on this podcast. And I, in fact, am focusing a course on soon about the importance of communicating from the heart and listening really from the heart. And you've been to the heart. You've been to the heart of the planet.
Think how many of us can't even listen, right?
But we're waking up. We're in this moment of waking up. So that should enable us to help listen further and more deeply.
And it's never too late, no matter where you are, right? It just starts by simplifying your life always. Start simplifying, let things go, create less chaos in your life. How do we, start to bring in more harmony? Start to let go of the things that are causing harm, right? Whether it's your thoughts, whether it's your emotions, whether it's the environment. Start to bring balance to all of that.
Beautiful. How do we find you? How do we get in touch with you? What's upcoming for you event-wise?
So you can reach out to me at richard@starseedschangingtheworld.com or my website, starseedschangingtheworld.com. In terms of events, sorry?
No, you have a pretty good Facebook presence also. I want to remind people of that. I connect with you a lot on Facebook. I am not a Facebook person, but I noticed you have a pretty strong presence there.
Yeah, Facebook and Instagram, you can connect with me at Richard D. Chambers. So on Instagram, it's Richard_D_Chambers. And yeah, in terms of events, I'm gonna really just sit back and on some of this because we have this event in New Jersey that's happening today, or that one just happened. Now we're in Pennsylvania today. And then the elders will go back to the mountains, bring all that healing and information back there. For us, we're always teaching live every other week, right in Hamilton, not too far from us. And then we have different online trainings that are always coming up as well. So whether it's shamanic workshops or trainings, or if it's, one-to-one stuff.
Yes, you're creating a strong community, both internationally and locally, and I might say sort of planetarily as well.
Yeah, in terms of going to Colombia, we're going in March. That one's already, we're on a wait list for that one. Usually I like people to kind of connect with us and know us a little bit before they go on those trips.
Right.
It's a very, very powerful experience. And every time you come back, you're different from it. So it's like you got to be ready for those kind of changes in your life as well.
Exactly. And have a sense of honor and presence and responsibility and walking with you in these very sacred places.
Absolutely.
I have to say, it's beautiful that we still have sacred places on this planet. And what an honor and a joy it must be for you to be in these locations.
I am so grateful that I have that privilege to be able to just, go and be there. It always feels like my home when I go there. And I think we've all, had many lifetimes in the mountains and in the temples. And then we kind of came down from the mountains and the temples, and to be all over the world. All of us are waking up right now, remembering those experiences and bringing that back. I know I've had lifetimes down in the Sierra Nevada as well. And when I go down there, I'm received in that way as well. And so, yeah, it's such a blessing that we have, just the Kogi, but many indigenous communities and around the world that, have done their best to maintain this memory as well. And for all of us that haven't been able to remember for this time, so now I'm hoping that we can all start to come together and just remember, the only way we're really going to heal is we all start to remember that we're brothers and sisters of the same earth. That's the place we all start to heal and come together from.
Amen.
Amen.
So, would you like to close this with a little prayer for our audience?
Sure. Just encouraging everyone to close your eyes and to take a deep breath in. With each breath, just coming down from the mind and into the heart. And as we connect into the sacred heart, just really, being grateful to the spirit of the land where I am, to the spirit of the land where you are, wherever that is in the world, just saying thank you for the sacred connection and for holding such wonderful space for our conversation today. And just, inviting that all of this can be received within the heart with love and awakening codes in a way that is, supportive for each one. And may this start to restore the sacred memory of life within your own life. And may you find the gentle ways to serve yourself and to serve a greater life for all of us here. And let this conversation just be an invitation to open to a higher vision for humanity. As I know and you know, and all of the ancient wisdom keepers know, that it's time for us to dream, to dream humanity coming into unity consciousness and to remember this sacred dream. We're all creators, and when we start to come together aligned in all of the ways that unite us instead of the ways that divide, is when the powerful changes on the planet start to occur. So this is an invitation for each one that listens to this to dream and to rediscover your sacred way, to find your sacred way again. Aho.
Wow, it's beautiful. That's beautiful. It's very powerful. All right. Well, thank you so much, Richard. And I hope you'll join us again.
Yes. Thank you, Diana, for having me.
Word for our sponsors, Oweli Supplements and CBD Pure, both whom have generously offered to give you 15% off using the SoulFam podcast coupon code SoulFam, SOULFAM, and free shipping. And trust me, when you're ordering stuff like this, it actually really adds up. You can save quite a bit of money, several dollars for every order. Both Lexi and I have worked with these products and their companies, and we have firsthand experience, and we really like these companies, sincerely. Oweli, OWELI.com, is a supplement company that uses natural ingredients based on ancient knowledge coupled with modern science, which sounds a lot like the SoulFam podcast. I am a huge supplement person. I take multiple supplements each day. The quality of Oweli supplements is high and effective, in my opinion. I take Move for joint health because I work out almost every day. I do yoga, I walk, I hike, I ride horses. And secondly, I mix collagen, peptides, hydrolyzed protein for a protein shake every day so I can be sure to get the right amount of protein in my body every day. And for women, I personally feel that's super important. CBD Pure, www.cbdpure.com, is made with non-GMO hemp grown without herbicides, pesticides, and other dangerous chemicals. Both Lexi and I feel like this is a stellar product. I use the CBD Pure 500 cream for pain in my neck from texting and working at a computer and a car accident I was in. Lexi uses CBD Pure Pet Health to help some of her posse of rescued cats who show up at her doorstep. They often have joint issues and other movement issues, and this product really seems to help Lexi's cats. Both products work superbly. No harmful side effects, at least from our experience. So once again, we thank our sponsors, CBD Pure and Oweli Supplements. We'll post links to both product lines on our Instagrams on my link tree and on YouTube and on our upcoming website, Patreon. Just remember the code for 15% off with free shipping, which once again adds up to a lot, is SoulFam, SOULFAM. That's SoulFam for our SoulFam.